Copac renewable energy and distributed power generation area for a long time. He launched a Canadian public company back in 2015 to consolidate, energy efficiency companies. Its Kontrol Energy brand has been out there for 5 years, developed a globally scalable energy efficiency technology and solution platform. I know this. I've known Paul for a very long time. When you're in our classrooms, as some of the students will know, the key is to try to get partnerships with people that of high quality, such as Paul's done with Toyota, and therefore has easily allowed him to have his systems recognized and be able to sell more, which obviously we know is the end of the day, the end goal here. Kontrol Group delivers more than 200 million kilowatt hours of energy savings per year of reduction of greenhouse emissions. So he's also involved in the greenhouse emission side, which is we're all part of the environmental side. Paul's also a passionate person building a sustainable future for energy efficiency through IoT, cloud, and SaaS technologies. Some of the things that are going to come up today are going to be raised by the students of how Paul has gotten to the stage. But I think what I'm going to do right now is let Paul get going here on Kontrol Energy, and welcome, Paul.
Hey, thanks, James. Great to be here. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
So, what do we want to do? Do we want to do an overview or
I think we do an overview of the company to start with.
Yep.
And then after that, what I'll do is we'll get into sort of going through how you've gotten here, because we like to do that at the after you've discussed the company. And the reason for that, then it's fresh on the students' minds now to suddenly start asking you a lot of questions.
Okay, so you've got control of the screen. I don't have a deck, but Did you just want to do like a macro overview?
No, I will bring up the deck right now. Okay. Give me 1 second, and we will have it up here. Okay. I'll share it now. Okay, there we go, Paul.
All right.
Tell me which slide you'd like to flip to. There's 10 of them, so you let me know.
Yeah, we'll just start and then go next slide. All right. Okay, so just thanks everyone for joining. I understand there's a number of people on the call, which is great. And part of this is educational and sharing, so we're happy to do that. So in 2015, I had the idea, exiting from the solar industry, that smart buildings would be the next area of growth in the global economy, mainly because buildings are one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, and they're also highly inefficient in terms of using energy, and governments were moving away from large power projects and moving much more towards a sustainable building model between buildings and the grid. So that's the genesis of Kontrol. And we started our journey in the public markets with the idea that we would acquire other companies and also grow organically. So we started this adventure at about $1 million of revenue. Last year, we closed at approximately $14.5 million. We've been recognized as one of Canada's fastest growing startups 2 years in a row. And as part of our mandate in terms of our verticals, we look at energy, we look at greenhouse gas emissions, and we look at air quality. So out of the air quality group, we've developed a new COVID technology, which I'm happy to share with you today and happy to take questions. So James, we can go next slide.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, just I think there's one right before.
Yeah,
we can.
Yeah, I'll go there. Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. So our value proposition is quite simple. Most buildings lack intelligence, and there's a lot more existing buildings than there will be new buildings. And so the idea is we focus on the existing building market, anything that's been built over the last 40 years, and we add intelligence. We do that through cloud, IoT, hardware, software.
It's supposed to be showing here. Can you bring it up? Sorry, I think, is it showing the slide or is it?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Large addressable annual market, right? Good, thanks, sorry.
Yeah. No problem. So in terms of the market we're addressing, we're focused on primarily North America. We've also started to do a little bit of work in Europe, but in the North American markets, the buildings consume approximately 200 billion annually of energy. So that's a very large energy market. We don't think of it that way, but it's quite large. About 30% of that energy is wasted due to inefficiency and lack of technology. We look to close that gap. And so we consider our market both energy and emissions. On the emission side, buildings contribute approximately 40% to greenhouse gas emissions. And so we look at those two as our primary addressable market. And James, you just lost the deck. The deck is gone. All right, the deck is back. So if you go down a few slides, I think it was, we just finished addressable market.
Would you like me, is that the right slide, Paul, or do you want me to go a little farther?
You know what? I think I can take control here just of the slide. Yeah, perfect. I got it.
Okay, good. You go.
All right, good. Technology. We got it figured out. So as James was mentioning, we have a very diverse client base. We cover all sectors of the real estate and buildings market, so multi-residential, commercial, industrial, institutional. No client right now represents more than 7% of our revenue, so we're well diversified across a blue chip customer base. And we look to do two things: add new customers and also grow within our existing customer portfolio. So, for example, with Toyota Tsusho Canada, they supply all the Toyota factories with solutions. They're part of their supply chain. So we've created a smart factory platform. We're in approximately 5 buildings right now. We're looking to scale that across North America. So organic growth is driven by scaling within our existing customer base and cross sales, and we're always looking to add new great customers. In terms of our technology, our core technology is driven by an ability to speak with existing buildings. So we have a technology that is patented that we consider open protocol. And the value of that is every building that you walk into has something called a building automation system. That's what controls the building's energy, air quality, and electricity. Some buildings have very sophisticated building automation systems. Most buildings do not. Because we have an open protocol where we can communicate with any building quickly and efficiently, what that allows us to do is work with the customer on a portfolio basis. The technology is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and over the internet, so we don't have to wire up the building. It's a very fast, affordable solution for our clients, but also very detailed with lots of data. So right now we've analyzed over 40 billion data records for our customers and growing. And essentially what we can do within about an hour is take all the data out of the building energy system, energy management system, give that back to our customers in a dashboard, and do deep analytics and start looking for solutions in the building to improve energy, to reduce emissions and improve air quality. So that technology is what won us the Toyota opportunity. It's a scalable technology, something we're very focused on. in terms of the energy and the air quality and emission side of the business.
You able to move that there, Paul? If not, I can move it.
A little bit of a lag there. That's okay. So what our customers get from us, which is very important, this is why customers engage with us, is they get a fast payback. In our industry, customers typically look for 3 years or less. That means if a customer is making a $50,000 investment, they want to recover their $50,000 in 3 years or less. And if the investment has a life of 10 to 12 years in terms of equipment or software solutions, that means they have a very high return on improving their building. Without that capital return, typically customers don't make those kinds of decisions. The other thing we do is we deliver energy savings in real time, emission reduction and management in real time, and we also deliver data. The importance of data is customers, we all live off our phones right now. Everybody wants access to instant information. The more visibility, the more data we can deliver to our customers, the more value we generate for our customers, and the greater the likelihood the customer keeps working with us now and in the future. So I think it's very important to understand what payback means. It's a defined investment term, and it means how fast does a customer make their money back on any capital improvement they've made in their building or their facility. In terms of how we generate revenue, we have recurring revenue from our software. We have recurring revenue from service, and then we have projects. And every building has a value to Kontrol, and that value is typically determined by the size of the building, the size of the portfolio. But what's important in the public markets and what investors really like is they like recurring revenue. And why is that? Because recurring revenue is predictable, and investors like predictability. So companies with high recurring revenue tend to have higher valuations over time. And so the way we view our business is we'd like to get the revenue 50% recurring, 50% project. We started the business with no recurring revenue. We're at approximately 30% right now, and we seek to grow that to 50, which is really how our industry is set up. About half the revenue recurring and half the revenue from new projects would be a good way to view the industry that we're in, and that would mean a good valuation on the revenue. So typically companies in our industry like Honeywell, Siemens, and Schneider, they can trade at approximately 3 times revenue on a market cap basis. And so Kontrol seeks to be about half recurring revenue by the end of next year and half from projects. I'll switch to our COVID technology. So out of our air emission and quality group, we have a company we acquired approximately 2.5 years ago, and they have about 25 years of experience in air quality and emission in industrial facilities, and a very sophisticated air quality managing group where we're looking for things that should not be in the air on a parts per million basis. So in March, we asked the question, and this is how we innovate at Kontrol. We got a bunch of people together from different groups in the business. And we asked the question, could we measure for COVID like we do air quality? Nobody had the answer, but we knew we had deep industry experience on measuring things in the air, things that should or should not be there. So we essentially said, we think we can do this if we can understand the chemistry. So we have the mechanical, the engineering, and the air quality side. We were missing the chemistry of how to find COVID. So we started working with 2 labs at the University of Western Ontario, and we also involved the Canadian government through the National Research Council of Canada for a funding grant. And we spent 5 months working with the lab on testing, and we announced numerous tests beginning in August through September that we were able to access dormant COVID. We were able to identify dormant COVID both with our detection chamber, which I'll explain, and the operating prototype, and we were also able to access live COVID through our system. And at the Impact Lab at Western University, they have access to the live COVID virus. So they're a level 3, level 4 lab. And so we've been very fortunate to have good testing partners, good access to the virus. And we're now in the process of commercializing the technology. So this started for us in March. We didn't make our first announcement until August. And now we're in the process of looking to commercialize and having units in the market in November. So I'm happy to take any questions on our COVID technology.
Yeah, I think, Paul, we'll leave the questions here for a second. Just I'll just come in for 1 second here, and then you can come back to the questions on the COVID. Is that okay?
Yep, sounds good. I think that was the last slide.
Yeah, I'm going to take control here for a second. I'm going to bring up a slide, hopefully.
Okay.
If I can get okay. I think everybody can see that slide, COVID idea generation. Yeah. Should be a green slide. Okay, great. So what Paul's been discussing here is one of the reasons why we've held these talks, and we've been subsequently running this through our classroom. So the students are understanding how we create new ideas. And obviously Paul has created a new idea here, and as the students know in our class and have been taught very thoroughly, is that coming up with new ideas is not as easy as everybody thinks. When you ask somebody how they generate a new idea, they just say, well, it just came to me. But the reality is it didn't, but they don't really understand how they did it because they've been trained earlier by other people, and now it's just generated. So I don't think a lot of people get taught how to generate new ideas, and the class will smile now when they hear me say that new ideas are just old ideas that have been put together and put through a process. And I think you can see by Paul's mechanism here that, again, these ideas have been out there for a while, but he's put them together and is able to measure COVID, and maybe if the people ask the right questions, other things that are out there in the air as well. So the reason why I'm showing you this slide is because if we're involved in an area, whether it's electric vehicles or any type of other idea generated, we're in a COVID area right now, and regardless of whether people like to hear it a lot or not, we have to decide whether we want to be a business person in this era, or we want to make money off of other businesses such as Paul's business, where we made a big investment. And we're not saying everybody else should jump into this, but where he's actually got something that's in the COVID era. So if you look at the 4 big areas that are important to how we develop new ideas and how we create business and how we make money off of business, I've broken them into 4 areas: detection, medicine, prevention, and mental illness. And I think, people always run after the fact. We like to be in it before these things happen. So in the detection area, airborne is one big area, which is Paul's gone into right now. Testing, human saliva and blood are another area. We don't do the testing side, but the airborne is really important to us because, as you can see right now, we teach a macro and micro in this class as well, economics. And without quick detection in airborne, then we've got problems with people that are in buildings that may have contacted COVID but didn't know about it because the air wasn't being tested properly. This is going to free people up to go back to work, be able to go back to restaurants, be able to get onto planes, along with quick detection within 1 or 2 seconds of getting an actual COVID test instead of 5 or 6 days. So these are big areas that are going to allow us to get back to our normalcy because COVID's not going away, unfortunately, if you want to hear the bad news. 2, there are medicines out there, vaccinations. Don't believe that there's any vaccinations coming for a while because they're not. Drug therapies, we cover companies like Apelli, who was on here earlier, that does have some drug therapies, and people can link up to that 1.5 hour audio that we had before with Dr. Balboni. Then there's prevention, which are companies out there that are preventing it, whether it's preventing you from getting diabetes and weight loss going forward. Because obviously COVID is affecting adversely people that have got diabetes or overweight issues, and therefore there's going to be prevention companies that are out there, as well as WebMD, which is now allows you to do online doctor services as opposed to going to a doctor's office, which obviously nobody wants to do in the future. Think about things like Apple Watch measures EKG and blood pressure now. You'll be able to do your blood pressure at home, send it to your doctor, and the doctor will be able to prescribe medications. And the final, mental illness, there's going to be people suffering from depression, because they haven't been able to go to work. There are companies out there that rely on depression. So this is how we come up with new ideas. And in that, you find companies such as Kontrol Energy, who have now taken care of some of that detection area via the airborne. So I think at that point, I will pass it back to Paul, just so people understand that's on here, the way of thinking within the classroom and the way we look at entrepreneurial people such as Paul and the companies that we're searching out for. We do it in a very structured, organized manner. So Paul, maybe you want to take it away with COVID there now?
Sure, thanks, James. So what I'll do is I'll give a summary of the tech, and then we can have some Q&A. So because of our experience, I don't need to put up the image, we can leave that. Because of our experience with sampling for things in the air in industrial facilities, what we determined was with our technology, so we sit on the wall about 6 feet above the ground. We're about 12 by 12 in size, and we are continuously sampling the air in a classroom setting. If it's about 1,000 square feet, we would sample that 5 times an hour. We built a detection chamber that can trap the virus and hold it. And then we have a liquid reagent. So we are going for a patent on the technology. So we're being very careful about what we're sharing because we think this is a race. There's other companies in the market that are pursuing this strategy as well. So we're being very careful about our patents and what we're patenting. But we proved in the lab that we were able to identify the COVID virus in live and dormant format. So our technology is really, as James said, we're on the detection side of creating a safe space. And if you think about the big challenges we're having, people are not going on buses, they're not going on planes, they're staying away from the office. So we're not saying that we're a cure or we're going to solve the entire problem. But if you don't feel safe in the space that you're in, you're going to have a hard time going to that space. So we like to think of our technology like a smoke detector or a carbon monoxide detector. You want to know there's something in the air if you can, and you want to know that you're safe. What our technology allows to happen in the COVID value chain is once you identify it in the air, you then immediately start contact tracing and you immediately start individual testing. So without detection, it's going to be hard to reopen the economy. What we're finding now is we have many competitors coming out of the US and some out of Europe. So maybe high level, I'll leave it there and we can start Q&A, James, or whatever you.
Yeah, I think some of the students, I don't know how many are online here. If we don't get anybody asking a question, maybe does anybody want to start? Maybe Inder wants to fire a question to begin with.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I understand you're getting a patent to protect your intellectual capital, which is great. But what kind of patent are you planning to get which will prevent competitors from with replicating your technology? Because if it's detection, there could be you can patent one way of detecting it, but there could be multiple other ways to detect the same virus. So how are you going to protect yourself against that? And secondly, what do you plan to do to stay ahead of the curve when you know competitors are also catching up with you?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, a patent, and this is really important for the students, a patent doesn't really protect your business. A patent guarantees that you can end up in a court fight for 10 years and maybe win. So our approach is multi-layered. We develop the patent to have protection over the long term, but the way you win is being a first mover and capturing your market. And if you're a first mover and you're gathering revenues and growing, the patent becomes your defense. It's very hard to use a patent to go on offense. So I think from our perspective, we have 3 or 4 different patent processes that we're establishing, which essentially means we're going to look at variations of our approach to capturing and detecting the virus. Others may have a different approach, but that's essentially what we're going to do is look at multiple tweaks in our system. However, we're also very cautious that a patent is not offense, it's defense. It protects the business over time, but being in a 10-year court fight doesn't generate revenue. So we're hyper focused on being one of the first products to market. We do know there's other competitors in the US. We do know there's competitors in Europe. We're not alone. And that, people should always consider that when you have a good idea and you're working on something that's unique, there's probably someone else in the world that has that similar idea and is working on something unique and perhaps slightly different. So I think our focus is really get to revenue as fast as possible, be a first mover, have a good patent, but allow the revenue to drive the business. And the patent is defense, not offense.
Great answer. The students that are on here or educating will be taking some notes, and you can ask some other questions on this. But it's interesting that you bring that up, Paul, and thank you, Inder, for that, because that's exactly what the students need to hear from somebody that's running a company. We've discussed it in the classroom about patents, and we've actually discussed it. Our top 5 things are management, legals, capital, liability, and competition. And they know that patents can end up being in the office, and these are students ranging from grade 7 all the way to grade 12, knowing that legal battles will occur, and if you're not big enough, you'll get buried in defense. So it's better just to get your product out there and get sales.
Right, exactly.
Any other questions that people want to speak up there right now? I've got a list of questions here that have been provided to me by some of the students, but does somebody want to step up and ask a question on the student side?
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For contract manufacturing in other countries, I just wanted to know how that was coming along, and if we were just waiting for CSA approval to start doing that. And if is Canada our main focus at the moment, or when sales start coming, would that be? It could happen in every country at the same time. Not like we wouldn't start with Canada, then we're deliver to India, then China, because if we have manufacturers in other countries, could orders be coming from all over the place?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So in relation to the COVID technology, our approach is we're going to manufacture in Canada to start. That's the initial approach. There's a couple reasons for that. One, we've involved the National Research Council, which is basically the Canada scientist. We're looking to secure our supply chain in Canada. We're very concerned about IP theft. It's something globally that every entrepreneur should be worried about. It's happening all over the world. So the way to protect your IP is to be strong in your country market. And that's where we're going to start. We are getting interest from all over the world. So beyond manufacturing in Canada, we will look at global and country distributorships as the first stage of going outside of Canada. We will not manufacture immediately outside of Canada to protect the technology, but we are looking at distributorships. In terms of getting to market, there's an entire process. CSA, which is basically safety authority and product safety, is something that we do regularly in our business, and we don't view that as a hurdle. It's just one of the steps in getting commercial. The other is establishing your contract manufacturing partnerships, your supply chain, any government approval. So our view is we can have all that and be producing product in November. That's our internal goal. We're working 14 to 16 hours a day to accomplish that. Most things are in our control and some things are not, but we know from our perspective, the pandemic is raging. The entire world is either in the second wave of this or the first wave that never went away. There's a sense of urgency, and we want product to market as soon as we can. So that's our 100% focus right now in terms of the technology.
That was a great question, by the way. We're going to answer some more questions here, but I'd like to add to that question. So what Paul's getting at, for people that don't understand IP technology theft that goes on around the world, on a bigger scale, to put it in perspective, let's say Paul and I start a company tomorrow that's got a great idea, and we go to most of the people on this chat and we ask them for $100,000 each, and we raise $10 million. We go put that product together. all the investors see the upside to it. We go out to the market and we manufacture in a different country, and they steal that product and manufacture it for 10 cents on the dollar that we can. Therefore, we've just lost most of our markets, and that way we're not going to recoup the money back into the company, which means all the shareholders just lost all their money. So, and it's very difficult for Paul at a small level or even a big level to be able to go and fight those patents in other countries, and therefore you're behind the scenes. So obviously there's a great amount of experience here from Paul, being able to exhibit that they're going to keep it within a legal entity right now that they understand, build that out, get the recognition from maybe government contracts and things like that, and then go ahead and sell that in other countries. So great question and great answer, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, can we have Jessica? I think you have a question. Jessica?
Sorry, I just muted myself. Hi, hello. I have two questions for Paul. The first question is, I believe there's already a huge demand in the market. So are you currently working with just one manufacturer or several manufacturers for the production of your system? So how is the production volume? Can this meet the market needs?
Okay, great question. Was that both parts, or was there a second part?
And the second one is, so after pandemic, do you think, do you have any new direction of your technology? So that's my second question. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. So I think the way we look at the technology is we believe demand will from the global market will outstrip our ability to supply in the short term, and I think that's a good problem to have. So what gives us that comfort is this is not just a product for Canadians. The opportunity is global. The pandemic is global, and the problem is global. So when we think of our markets, it's really any building where people gather in spaces where they need to feel safe, or any mass transportation. So I believe, and this is just based on the feedback we're getting from the market, there's lots of global interest in the product. And so if you're a business owner and you're running a business and there's more demand than supply, that's a good problem to have. So we hope that's the case as we launch in November. And in terms of the technology, we're extremely focused on BioCloud, which is an air sampling technology. So we're not a medical device or a health device, and I want to be very clear about that. We're looking for the virus in the air where people gather. So if there's a room and nobody's in the room, nobody cares about identifying COVID. If there's a room and there's students or there's people on a plane or a bus, that's where we're all concerned. However, there are applications with our technology that we've been discussing internally and having really idea sessions around at this point. So for example, could we take BioCloud and turn it into a breathalyzer? Are there other applications that we could develop? So we believe the answer to that is yes. However, we're hyper-focused on accelerating this product to market first, establishing the product, and then looking at new product generation in the future. The one thing I want to add, which I think is very important for every student on the call, is we've designed the product. It's for COVID right now, but we've designed the product with longevity. And why is that important? Because the pandemic's going to go away. It might be next year. It might be 18 months. We may be all be vaccinated. But viruses and pathogens are not going away. So we have other applications with our technology, including things like Legionnaire's disease, H1N1, that we can have a different detection mechanism, a different detection chamber for that. So with the same product, we could have multiple applications in buildings, and also we could take the product and create new applications. And that's for longevity. Longevity is very important because if customers only need you for a year or 18 months, you're not going to have a successful business. The idea with your products is to have them in for the long term and be creating new products over time. So thank you for your question.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Paul. Obviously, people know that Thanks, Jessica. People know that infrastructure costs, margins are always tight in any business. Therefore, when corporations decide to go down the path of implementing a new infrastructure piece, such as this unit on a HVAC system, we're not talking about a COVID startup company here that's just taking advantage of the excitement of COVID to increase their market capitalization. We're actually talking about a legitimate company here that is in the HVAC business of buildings, and therefore these units are quite substantial capital outlays by companies, and therefore the ability to be first to market, which they are, and be able to do other things such as Legionnaires and other viruses in the air is an important thing that is going to be ongoing, therefore cash flowing, and therefore the reason why companies will step up and make big capital outlays like this. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question should be from Arthur. I see the hand up. Hello, Arthur, are you there?
Hi. So I have two questions. So the first one is, what is the radius of the COVID machine?
Okay, thank you. So we say we cover approximately 1,000 square feet with one unit. The variable to that is the number of people in the room. So for example, in a classroom setting of 1,000 square feet, if you have 15 students and we're sampling the air 5 times an hour, we will detect the virus much faster than if we have 2 students in the room. So the number of people in the room is important. Our technology is designed as a safe space technology, which means we want to be in those areas where people gather. And the more people in the room, the faster we'll be able to detect the virus, but typically we would say 1,000 square feet is the radius.
Okay, thank you. And the second one is how long would it take to test the whole radius?
Yeah, so using a classroom setting, we're sampling the air 5 times per hour. On an airplane setting, it may be 8 times per hour because of the volume of air. And based on our lab testing, we had a very high sensitivity on detection. So our view is, if we're using 15 to 18 students in the classroom, we would say within an hour to 2 of those students being in the room, we would have a detection. We would send a silent alarm to the facility manager, the teacher, or the principal. And the important part of the detection now is you can start individual testing, you can localize it to the classroom, and you can also start contact tracing, which is very important. We're having some of these super spreader events because we don't know, for a few weeks that someone has been ill. And now you got to go contact trace to 10,000 people. Using our approach, you're localizing the detection, which means everything else in the value chain can start moving much more quickly.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe Kobe Lee had a question there. Kobe, do you want to ask a question?
No. No, I think the question is from Ozair. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Ozair Ismail. Thank you. Are you ready to ask your question?
He just did. He's already asked. So there's Cam Hargraf. You want to ask a question there, Cam?
Yes, absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, great. Paul, as far as the 1,000, couple of questions in regards to what you were just saying, 1,000 square foot. Can you, in a building that's, say, in a room that's slightly bigger, you say you're at 1,434 square feet, can we add another unit to that room? Is there expandability when it comes to that?
Yes. So the way we think about it, we use the example of if you're in a small room and you have a smoke detector, a little bit of smoke, it's going to detect it. But let's say you were in a gymnasium and the smoke was on one side of the room and the smoke detector was on the other. It's going to take longer. So the idea with BioCloud is units can be stacked and integrated through the cloud. So in 1,500 square feet, you could have 2 units that are integrated with each other. We allow both cloud access and local intranet. And the logic there is some customers have already told us, through a planning process that they don't want to be on the cloud. And so that's just for safety of data, who has access to the data, can it be hacked? And the primary data there would be how many times did the system go off and how it operates. So yes, to answer your question, you can have more than one unit. They can be connected via the cloud, or you can stay on the local intranet. And the way you would solve a larger room is to have more units.
Okay, great. Now we talk about planes, having the unit on a plane, doors are closed, air circulating on that plane, definitely a wonderful, viable option. As far as, let's say with the TTC, the TTC streetcars, even busing, the doors open and close quite a bit on a unit like that for transport. What's your feeling on being able to use these units on that form of transportation with the doors being opened and closed quite frequently? Is it a useful tool for what we're looking at there?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I think what it comes down to, and it's really an economic question, because if you look at in Ontario, I think ridership right now on mass transportation is down to about 30%.
Correct.
That's a pretty big drop. So I would say the way to think about our technology is it works in that space, it's valid, and it's a question of economics. Do we get a unit to increase ridership, or how do we solve that challenge? And I think every organization that's dealing with safe spaces and trying to get people back into their space is really going to struggle with that, and that's where we fit in. So the question is, what does Kontrol cost, and how does it work versus what's happening right now? And what's happening right now is higher vacancies in buildings, less people taking transportation. So a 70% drop, for ridership across mass transportation is just a huge number. And, that starts to affect budgets, government budgets, and losses, et cetera. So I think from our perspective, the technology can be anywhere where people gather and you're looking for safety in the space. The question of economics is going to reside with every organization. What do they pay to solve their challenge? And we view ourselves as a global solution. So we're not really focused on whether it's TTC or if it's some subway system in Europe. We're looking at the entire global pandemic as potentially helping solve that problem. But to your question, and it's a good one, is what do people pay to solve their problem?
Great.
I'll add in there, Paul, because we teach this in the classroom as well, how the entire infrastructure is run from a tax base, and obviously without people going to work, for the kids or the students to understand this, and I'm glad this has come up, that without that tax base working, you're losing that tax base, which then employs people in the education industry, it employs people in the hospital business, it employs a lot of different people, and it almost becomes a death spiral here. So the economics of this become, what does it cost to bring something in that makes the public feel safer versus the amount of losses that are occurring in the community because they're too scared to go out. So great answer, and thank you, Paul. Before I answer a couple others, I just want to get a couple students in here questions that came in. He said one of them was, what did you feel like when you first started your company? Like, what were because a lot of these students now are grade 7, 8, and some of them are already entrepreneurial beyond belief, and they haven't experienced that first feel of what a company's like. All they see is statistics. 95% of people fail. So they're going into a lot of this stuff based on a thought of failure. And we know that if you go into it with the proper mechanics and the right thought process, whether it's MIT's 24 steps and everything else, you're not going to fail. So, Paul, maybe you give us and what did it feel like when you were first starting to hire people as well? How did you get those people?
So look, I would say being an entrepreneur is like being on a roller coaster. And if you like roller coasters, they're fast, they're fun, they're also sometimes really scary. There's a lot of ups, there's a lot of downs, and the way to think about it, it's much more of a journey than an event. And if you understand there's a process and a journey, that not everything happens in day one. You have to work really hard. You have to have the right understanding, capital structure, financial structure. But if you think about it as a journey, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Nothing's ever a straight line. But if you're passionate about it and you have something to share, it's a great way to be on a journey for sure.
I see Brett. Brett is in line for a question.
Brad, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, I just wanted to start off by thanking you for focusing on building shareholder value. I have two questions for you.
Okay.
Where did you get the number of 20,000 units for the BioCloud, the manufacturing capability? Was that based on demand?
Okay. So the way we looked at this as a global product, we said, you know, what would we need to build in our supply chain to feel comfortable that if we were a global product and solving a global problem, that we could be able to supply a customer. So it's really, the way to look at it is, if a customer approaches you with a large order and you're not ready, now you've got to scramble and go build capacity. So this was much more about making sure we had a supply chain that could withstand up to 20,000 units, which basically, if you think about it, let's say there's 100 components in our BioCloud technology. Each of those components has to be tested to see if there's any strains on that supply chain, or you're not going to be building them. So that's the approach that we took. Let's go build capacity of 20,000 units per month. That doesn't mean we were making a revenue projection or saying that was going to be the revenue. But if you're going to be a global product, you know, 20,000 units is a big number. But if that's spread around 5 or 6 different countries, you can start to see the challenge of not having capacity ready. And you know, for a customer who wants to give you a large order, they're not going to do that unless they know you've built a supply chain that can handle some orders. So I would say much less about revenue forecasts and much more about having the capacity to deliver when we're ready.
Thank you for that answer, Paul. My last question was, do you foresee getting any of your BioCloud units to your existing customer base? Have you heard of any demand from them at all?
Yeah, thank you. So we're in constant communications with our existing customers. We're working with the Canadian Trade Commissioner, so we've had a number of federal meetings. Some of those have been posted on lobbyist websites that record that. On the Canadian Trade Commissioner side, there's lots of interest coming from India. India has been very hard hit with COVID. They've actually been either the #1 or #2 most hardest hit economy. So there's lots of interest in a distributor model in India, and we're also having discussions in the Middle East. And so I would say there's lots of discussions. You know, the best way to think about the product is get the product ready to ship in November, build your supply chain, you know, have parallel discussions with customers and new opportunities, and hit the ground running is our approach. But we are building a new technology, a new product. That doesn't happen in a week. There's a process. You know, we're running hard into that process, and a lot of these things are running parallel. But we're very excited to, you know, really focus on solving the big challenge with the pandemic. And we're hearing more about this every month. Is about, you know, spaces closing down, buildings closing down. So, you know, we feel very comfortable that there's lots of interest, but the primary focus is to get the product shipped, starting to ship in November.
Thanks a lot, Paul. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
He's muted.
Yeah, I think our host is muted.
Yes, he's muted.
Sorry, guys. Tiana, do you want to fire away with your question? Deanna, do you want to? Yeah.
This is kind of an irrelevant question, but who are your biggest customers?
Okay, thanks for the question. They're always good questions. Our largest customer right now is no one customer is more than 7% of our revenue. One of our largest customers is in the what we call the apartment building sector, the multi-residential sector. So they have about 11,000 apartments that they manage across Canada. We're in approximately 70% of their buildings. We're adding new technology as we go. One of the things we've done to date is not allow any one particular customer to be overly dominant, and that's because that can carry a specific risk with it. So we try really hard to continuously add new customers, diversify the revenue across multiple verticals, and the focus is on the commercial building, multi-residential, and institutional industrial market, and spread the revenue where 85% of our revenue is Canadian. 15% is now in the US, and we're looking to grow into the US. And we're also working early stages of some US acquisitions to add to our geographic footprint. So that's a great question. Thank you very much.
So I'll ask the question for the students down here again. One of the questions was, how did you get your first raise? They've studied, they understand bootstrapping and all the other fun stuff that's out there, but what was that first ability to be able to go out there? How did you bring your ideas out to the public after vetting them? And then, what were your first people to raise capital with, and how did you do it?
Yeah, so the first raise was myself. I put up all the money, and I would say this, and it's very important, if you believe in yourself, you have to invest in yourself. If you believe in yourself and invest in yourself, other people will follow, not everyone. I would say the interesting thing about raising capital is most people say no to you, and James, you know this, right? But the ones that say yes typically say yes because they believe in you. They know that you're invested. So I would say you have to invest in yourself first. It's very important. Then you bring people close to you, family, friends that invest. That's the second level. And then you go to the market. So we've been very careful about how we raise money. One thing that you should always be worried about, it's very easy to raise the wrong kind of money. It's really hard to raise the right kind of money. And if you raise the right kind of money and you have a good share capital structure, it's going to help you be successful. But always be ready to invest in yourself first. And if you're not prepared to do that, no one else will invest in you.
So I'll add to that, Paul. You actually hit on a couple things that I'm glad you brought that up, and it's a great question by one of the students. Is investing in yourself is not only just capital, but time, and
right.
Maintaining that mental patience to say that, as Warren Buffett says, you're only going to get about, and the kids, students know this, not kids, students know you only get about 21 shots in life, and one of them is your health, and the rest of them are making sure that you at least give the proper amount of time when you go down a path, if you've decided to go down that path, because it takes time. And it may sound complicated to some people, but the students in this class fully understand dilution and market capitalization. Paul, how much that beckons to me too. So everybody knows here that, correct me if I'm wrong, we've only got about, how many shares that's standing, Paul, fully diluted?
Fully diluted, we're approximately 40 million.
So fully diluted 40 million shares, which is a very great position to be in, and it speaks for Paul over the years, because it's been 5 years since he's been starting this company that he only has 40 million shares that's standing. Well, he's built a very good company. So he's been very selective with his capital input, and he's also been very tight managing the books. Being a CA, we teach in the class that CAs don't always make great CEOs, Paul, because they're a little too conservative. But you know what? We applaud you for being able to do both those jobs at once. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the next question is from Angela, and then we'll catch to Brad and Uzar again here. Angela, you want to fire a question?
Thank you. So my question is on the SaaS service. I know that the goal, I think.
You're going to have to speak up, Angela. We can't hear you there.
Oh, okay. Just can you hear me now? Maybe I should use a headset.
No, we can't hear that question. Unfortunately, Angela, you're too muted. Okay, Brad, do you want to go next? And maybe Angela can type it in. Go ahead, Brad. Yeah. Okay, Ozar, do you have another question there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hi, thank you, Paul, for your time again. It's just a question about timeline, really. You've sort of previously spoken that a large lead order was sort of essential to protect the IP, and November just being sort of just over 2 weeks away. I just wanted to ask, when do you think you'll be able to give the market a bit more of an update about sort of that crucial sort of first large lead order? Thank you.
So I would say there's a number of different milestones that we have to hit. So one of them is the National Research Council, which provided 50,000 in funding to help us accelerate our testing. So we would seek the next round with National Research Council, which would be their validation and commercialization funding, which we don't need from a capital markets perspective, but it's extremely helpful when one part of the government is in your deal, other parts of the government follow. So I would say over the next 6 weeks, there's a number of milestones. That's one of them. Orders are the other, and we would seek to update the market, I would say in the range of over the next 2 weeks, depending on timing. And into November, we'll provide more updates on production. But our view is we'd like to have product in the market in November. And from a business execution perspective, the way we look at this is there's a series of milestones, and the next 6 weeks are going to be very important to our future. But this is just really the beginning of the journey for Kontrol. This is a new product. It has global potential and more than one application. So while the next 6 weeks are extremely important in terms of timelines, we feel that we're really at the start of this technology journey here in Adventure. And so we're both focused on the next 6 weeks and the next 6 years in terms of building a sustainable product.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One of the questions from the students, Paul, is, and we always like to end, it's been an hour, but we always like to end with some, I think there might be some written questions there too, coming, Michelle. But on the education side, when you're going through school, Paul, high school, university, and then here, what was kind of the thought process when you realized you want to become an entrepreneur, and how did you teach yourself all this? Because one of the concerns that we have, or what we're trying to show here, is to take away that fear of the students of generating new ideas and being entrepreneurial, because most people really don't know what they're doing. And in here we teach everything from, I mean, we got grade 8 students that actually now understand a shareholders agreement and partnerships and everything. So they're getting to a level where, hey, I didn't understand that till I was 18, 19 to 20 and past that. What kind of got you to your spot here through education and mindset that you wanted to go forward with?
Yeah, so I was trained. I always liked numbers. I was trained as an accountant, but I always had the passion of doing deals and being involved in deals. So we would call that mergers and acquisitions. It was always exciting to me. So part of my entrepreneurial spirit comes out of deal making and building things and growing things and selling things and buying. So that was always underneath. I think my career, being good with numbers is really helpful when you're public. Most things are about numbers, financial numbers, analysis, financial metrics. I would say I'm an avid reader. I love to read about other CEOs. So I would say always read, find great books, study the history of other CEOs, see how they think, and that's how you learn. So it's kind of the school approach, the scholastic approach builds a solid foundation, but always be learning outside of school. And I would say that one of the number one skill sets you have to survive in the new world is be adaptable. Don't just focus on what you're good at. Also build up your skills on what you're not good at, and be very adaptable in your environment, and always be learning. It's very important. Once you stop learning, you really stop growing.
Fantastic answer. Cam, do you have a question there? I know we've run a couple minutes over, but Shelley, do you have Miss Shelley? Do you have some questions there from students that have typed in?
No.
No. Okay, Cam, do you want to fire away a question there? I see you got your hand up.
Yes, one comment and one question. Sorry, I took up lots of time last time. Paul, as far as revenue stream, revenue structuring, new product to market, if the government, let's just say the government of Canada at this point, stepped in with a lead order, with a large order, and then we're looking at order, say, for something in regards to Transport Canada, but then we're talking about how you mentioned a distributor order or setting up, within India. What, in your opinion, when looking at these two sales strategies, two sales avenues, what would take precedence? What would take priority? Would it be working with our local, our national, our country to release this product, or going with a distributor in India with the potential for more sales? What would you say with that, Paul?
Great question.
Yeah, great question. So there's really two parts to that. If you're going to be working with the government and taking their money, which we are, there is. I'm not going to say it's contractual, but there is a view that you should be supporting the Canadian market, and I'm aligned with that. So we're an Ontario-based company. We're Canadian. That market's first. However, as a public company with shareholders that are global, we're also solving a global problem. So I would say it's a fine line of supporting our local market and being a global company. And the way around that really is, you create your revenue opportunities. You look at who's a first mover. You seek to supply your market first, but things can always happen where you can't. But as long as the view from our perspective is that there is a market here to supply, we are going to focus on that. Just as important, our manufacturing supply chain is now approximately 85% Canadian, so that's very important. And it's going to stay that way, at least for the first year. So there is no perfect answer, but the way we approach this is all avenues are open. We do want to supply our market first, but this is a global problem, and we're working on global opportunities in parallel.
Great.
Thank you, Ken.
Just basically a comment. I believe in the vision and what you're doing. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Actually, to the point that I own 100,000 shares. I really, I'm like I said, I really think this is just amazing technology. I'm a successful entrepreneur and sales manager, but looking at a point where I would pivot into an industry like this. So yeah, I sent you my resume and my information through to, I sent it to an email at info@Kontrol, but my name's Cameron Hallcraft, and if you see anything on there and you're looking for some help.
Just send it to Paul at Kontrol. Info has been overwhelmed, and but send it to Paul at Kontrol, and I'm happy to Paul at KontrolEnergy.com, and I'm happy to take a look. And thanks for being a shareholder. I love talking to shareholders, and thanks for your passion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, that's a great line, Cam. Thank you for that. I like that kind of. That's why we invite a lot of other people into the conversation as well, other than just students and that, because we get the students get to hear real shareholders talking, which is what the students are going to be at some point, and they get to hear obviously job opportunities, which is what we're trying to teach throughout the class, is follow the money. Because I know it sounds like a cliche word, but when you're following the money, you're following your passion as well, and you get to decide where you want to be. So great question, by the way. Thank you. I know we're a little over time now. What I'd like to say is thank you, Paul, for taking this here. We're going to have a lot of questions that will come in from students. I know afterwards, some of them are always scared to ask when they're live with 100 people online, but this will be, we've asked the students to take notes on this. It is being videoed or audio taped as well. So transmission, we'll have that out to everybody so that everybody can reread some of the comments. We've had some great feedback from our students from some of the past, like Mr. Marchand and Mr. Balboni, who were CEO of Medicina and Appalai on the program earlier, which has really helped the students out. And I think you've added some other great additions, such as reading to keep on. And that's why we had in our classroom, actually, we allow the students to access almost all the the subscriptions out there like Wired and Harvard Business Review and MI Technology, which we pay for, and the students all get access to those publications. So they're constantly reading all the time. I want to say thank you also to Ms. Shelley Zhang for collaborating between yourself. A lot of work goes into this, as you've seen, Paul, from marketing to weeks of setting this all up. So I want to say thank you to Focus Learning and Ms. Shelley Zhang for running this, because it's a great attribute for the community, for the students, and for the businesses that are out there that are entrepreneurial, such as yourself, Paul. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be with you. Thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you so much for bringing the revolutionary technology to us. And being a business person myself, being an entrepreneur myself, I really like your analogy that it's like a roller coaster. And, and I just wish you and I wish Control Energy smooth ride all the way, even higher. And I will take your words, ABL, always be learning. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Don't be in the front car.
That's right.
Anyways, everybody, I want to thank you for taking the time as well, for an hour and 10 minutes here on a Saturday afternoon. This wouldn't happen if we didn't have all those people join. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please email us as well, and we'll forward them to Paul in a organized manner. Okay. Thank you, Paul.